In the period just after the election, it was total chaos, and a lot of conservatives would do anything to feel like it's not over, and there's hope. So take a look at this. Trump supporter gave $2.5 million to investigate voter fraud and wants his money back. So the guy's name is Fred Eshelman. He's a wealthy man from North Carolina. And he talked on the phone to the head of a small conservative group called True the Vote. And they convinced him, like, we're fighting this fraudulent election. We're on the front lines of this battle. We're waging a bunch of the court cases. So, donate to us and I guarantee you won't regret it. So he did. I think he gave $2 million at one point and then another $500,000, or maybe it was the other way around. Either way, that's a lot of money that he gave. Well, come to find out, quote, True the Vote directed much of his money to people or businesses connected to the group's president, Catherine Engelbrecht. So this is the same. Listen, this is exactly what Trump was doing. He was raising money saying, we're going to fight this in the courts. And then most of the money just went down to pay his campaign debts. This is exactly what the Lincoln Project guys were doing. They were taking money and funneling it to their own businesses. So this is the same thing, except taking money from people, claiming you got a chance to fight the election results, and then they don't even know, if any of the money went towards that. You know what I mean? So, but listen, this gets to a bigger conversation. It is an interesting conversation. How do you feel about this? Do you feel like, hey, since, you're such a sucker that you fell for this, and, that's on you, dog? Because part of me feels like, how did any of these people think any of these attempts were real to begin with? It boggles my mind that anybody could have been convinced that, after we got the election results, they're like, no, there's actually a chance we're going to overturn it. I find that so far-fetched, and I think that mindset is so outside of the norm that, I almost feel like if you fell for that, you deserve to whatever you donate to go up in flames. Part of me feels like that, but then the other part of me feels like, but hold on, if they're actually committing fraud, so in other words, if they're actually taking the money and the money is just not going towards the thing that they said it was going to go towards, well then it's even though it's kind of funny, it's still a situation where under the law, they have been wronged. You know what I mean? But see, there's a lot of groups like this that popped up, and a lot of people donated to them, and you don't know, because there's not enough reporting on this, and we don't have all the information, but you don't know which groups were serious, which groups weren't serious, what percentage of the money went towards the court, the court process to overthrow the election results, and what didn't. We just don't know. We don't have enough information. But, I'm sure some of the groups, even though they're crazy, there was a good faith effort, because there were, I don't know, over 60 court cases, and Trump lost all but one of them. So there were attempts to do it, but some groups were legit, some groups weren't, some were somewhere in the middle where some of the money would go towards that and others won't. In this case, it looks like this group was particularly shitty. It looks like it's particularly bad, and so this guy is like, hey, fuck you, you didn't deliver on, and the details of this are fascinating, because what he realized is he would stay in constant contact with them to try to get updates and to try to understand what was happening himself. And what would happen is every time he would call them, they would jump from one election fraud conspiracy claim to another. So he'd be like, well, hold on, you told me that this was going on in this state and you were fighting on this one. Why are you now talking about a different state and a different claim? What about the other one? Do you have results for the other one? And every time he tried to talk to them about this shit, they would just jump from one claim to another to another. He'd never get closure on the previous ones. And after a while, he was like, oh, this is I'm just being had right now. But again, it's there's this whole ecosystem of this, because Trump was doing the same shit. When you read the fine print on the emails he was sending out, it was yeah, I'm pretending you're giving me money so I could overturn the results of the election. But the fine print was most of the money's not going towards that at all. It's going towards Trump and his own campaign debts and maybe even into some of their pockets. So there you have it, man. It became an industry. But to me, the stunning part was just how brazen it all was. With One American News Network and Newsmax, I was always thinking what the fuck is your end game, bro? They keep pretending like, oh, there's a chance the election results are going to be overturned and it's fraudulent and this problem and that problem. And I was watching it the whole time like, what's your end game? Eventually Biden's going to be sworn in, and then what the fuck are you going to do? You're going to be exposed as the biggest idiots on the planet, and you've been pushing the most bogus narrative ever. How can you? That's embarrassing to do that. But honestly, in many situations, it was all about that. You know, they spoke to, it was either the head of Newsmax or One American News Network, and that person was like, yeah, we know, but what are we going to do? We're getting some amazing ratings. So they viewed that as an opportunity to grab parts of Fox News' audience. But like, yeah, but eventually it's going to blow up because Biden's going to get, inaugurated, and then Fox News was right when they were like, yeah, Biden won, it's over. So now you just look like idiots, and they'll probably go back to Fox. But who knows? Who knows what's going on in the mind of the very far right-wing crowd? But there you have it, man. I'm sure there's a lot of people who lost a lot of money donating to overturn their election stuff, and a lot of these groups knew they were shaking people down.